This talk show unravels your thinking, makes you stop to listen, engages you in a debate of opinions.
I believe this man knows what he is doing. He is a Nigerian.
And ultimately brings you to the king of talk radio, Femidlive. This November, all things are clear, concise, complete, but not over. Join the November conversations with Femidlive.
Nothing breaks the news like the news. Trust me, I can prove it. I'm ready. Let's take on the biggest debates on radio, provide insights, experience, and build an unforgettable discussion together. I am Femi D. Amele. Let's talk with Femidlive is on.
From different parts of the country, I welcome you to Just Nigeria, where we are having this broadcast this evening. This would have to be the room where there's always enough room for anybody to debate. A debate about what is going on in the country, current affairs, debate about the political situation. There's always room for debate every single time. Welcome to the show this evening. I'm Femi D. Amele. And yes, the discussion today remains the one we started off yesterday. It's a simple phenomenon to understand this, that we are at a time where we need more of English language to explain what is going on in the maths parts of our economy. In other words, you need more English to possibly explain to everybody what the likes of the MPC, MPR, what else am I calling now? Inflation rate, the GDP, going up, coming down, marginal change, and all this terminology you can find in the world of economics. They come out really interesting. Really, really interesting. And, you know, I've heard this before. When you make one lie or you try out one lie, you need a bigger lie to explain it. But peradventure, you choose to say the truth. It's very likely, and I say this again, it's very, very likely that what you would likely get is that the truth sometimes doesn't need more explanation as the days go ahead. As expected, the CBN did have a meeting yesterday and today. Much of the resolution would be of good interest. It's not too far from what many of us predicted and even thought about that the final motion would be. Well, the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Monetary Policy Committee, which has about 10 people on it, decided today, November 22nd, in their final meeting for the year. Now, a lot of the indicators that would tell us whether we're doing fine or not doing fine, everything should stay the same. For example, the monetary policy rate stayed at 14%, the cash reserve ratio at 22.5%, liquidity ratio at 30%. And by the way, that has not changed. And liquidity ratio is supposed to be the amount of money you allow to just move around to trade and everything and the likes of them. And then you have the cash reserve ratio as well. And then the range of, in case anything would change. You know, when you go to the market and you have a part of you say, this pomo that I'm about to buy, sometimes it can be 100 naira. Anyway, let me just take 150 naira in case this pomo chooses to change. In case it comes down to 120, I can afford it. As against saying everything must feed at 100 naira for pomo, and when you get to the market, you discover it's 120. Well, they created an asymmetric corridor as well around Nigeria's economy, especially the monetary policy. They left it between plus 200 and minus 500 base points. In other words, it could go left, really, really bad, and it could go forward, plus 200 as well. Now, it's not too far from what expected, but a little bit from that meeting today was the fact that the CBN governor made it clear that nobody was planning on criminalizing the idea of jail time for keeping money at home as a foreign currency. Let me take you a little bit into that conversation as it happened today. Towards the end, there was not much to say in terms of what they didn't change, but here is a little bit part of some response that you would find the CBN governor embark upon earlier on today. I'll just take some part of it and then I'll bring in my guests into the conversation.
Well, first, I think let me respond to the issues about the allegation that the CBN is planning jail terms for people keeping dollars at home and indeed confiscate dollars that people are keeping. That allegation is untrue. And let me seize the opportunity to reiterate myself. It is not untrue. It is not. There is nothing in our current foreign exchange regulations that says that people will be jailed or that their dollars will be confiscated. But I'm aware, because just today I was told the Nigerian Law Reform Commission is looking at reviewing the exchange regulations just like they normally will from time to time. The Law Reform Commission is an agency of government that has a responsibility for reviewing, like you said, Law Reform Commission, reviewing all laws in the country from time to time, depending on exigencies of time. We have not been contacted regarding whether or not some of the clauses that are involved, that are included in the review that is being conducted by the Law Reform Commission. But I'm saying here and categorically that if we are contacted or whenever it becomes an issue for discussion, we will advise against a clause that forbids people from keeping their dollars if they choose to, or a law that says that people should be jailed for keeping foreign currency. I repeat, there is nothing in our current and extant foreign exchange regulations that says that people will be jailed or that their foreign currencies will be confiscated. I advise people to please stop listening to rumor mongers, but let's go about our business the way we normally would do.
And that's one part of the conversation from the CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, earlier on today. So there were a little bit of, as regards what the CBN was planning to do or would need to do in order to save the economy. He also had some other ideas to share regarding that. Okay, so that is part of the conversation. But as you listen, before you do listen in, one thing you need to know is that the Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Udoma, yesterday said the federal government has spent 3.577 trillion naira as of September out of the 6.06 trillion naira. Now, guys, what this means is if you do the maths very evenly, it means out of the budget for the year 6.6 trillion naira, we have spent close to about 4 trillion naira, more than 60% of it. Now, I know, don't ask the question I'm about to ask you, but because I would like to ask you before you ask yourself. The simple question is, so what have we seen? What has been done so far so good? Well, he disclosed this. He said the federal government has spent about 3.577 trillion naira as of September 2016 out of the full year budget of 6.06 trillion naira for the 2016 fiscal year. And this means, I even said 60%, his words exactly, is that the budget has performed 79% performance in the last 3 quarters. Allow me to catch my breath on this. 79% performance so far is what the Nigerian 2016 budget has done for you and I. That's according to the Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Udoma. I'm quoting his words here. I'm not trying to make up something out of place. Okay, so let's take a little bit more now into that. He said, in addition to the total of 2.44 trillion naira so far released for capital expenditure, non-debt, recurrent, and service-wide vote expenditure, a total of 1.138 trillion naira has been paid out to domestic and foreign debt service. This includes 44 billion transferred to the sinking fund to retire maturing obligations. Don't worry, we'll come back to that. Let's take a little bit more from that moment today where the CBN briefed Nigerians as regards the state of the economy.
What are the risks facing the Nigerian banking system at this time? I've said so before and I will continue to. As a result of the current challenges being faced by the global economy, all agents in the financial system, and here I'm talking of banks and other players in the financial system, are facing tremendous risks. Normally, in any economy, when there's a slowdown or there's even a recession, naturally financial institutions, particularly banks, will face certain risks of NPLs rising, risks and different other risks. And what that does is that it imposes on the regulator a great challenge to ensure that it strengthens its prudential guidelines to ensure that the banks and particularly depositors are protected. So, I'm saying Nigerian banks, like other banks in other climes, are facing risks, but those risks are surmountable. And the central bank is doing its best to ensure that those risks don't crystallize to a point where we begin to talk about depositors risking their deposits. So for that reason, I would say the risks, the rumor about maybe banking system risk is overtly elevated. And I repeat, these are risks being faced by any banking system or any financial system in any clime today that is facing challenges arising from the global challenges. Analysts are saying that the crackdown will drive, first of all, the regulation, the foreign exchange regulation in Nigeria today forbids trafficking in currency. We should just underscore that point on the streets. You cannot stand on the street and traffic in currency. So what we know is that the security agencies have a right to enforce the laws. And the law, for as long as the law says you cannot traffic currency on the streets, you are supposed to be in your offices, conduct your business, you will have to adhere to that. If you don't adhere to that, the security agencies will arrest you. Okay? So, but again, talking about whether to drive them, the black marketers underground. Black market are illegal foreign exchange dealers. So we don't consider in our own analysis people who want to go underground and conduct illegitimate business. If you are conducting a legitimate business, you should be free to operate your business not under the table, come over in an open market and conduct your business, and nobody will harass you. Crackdown on agencies, law to reduce number of BDCs. Well, we believe that everybody is entitled once the regulations are set. There is no need to preclude you if you meet the conditions. But of course, naturally, the regulator, in this case, Central Bank of Nigeria, has a right to put in place policies that limit entry.
You have a right to put in place policies that limit entry. Well, I'll take you through the rest of that conversation as we go on. I'm joined now by a renowned economist, Tope Fashua. Thank you so much for joining me. I know it's an emergency. I digged you up in this late day. Thank you for joining into the conversation on JFM, Jos Nigeria. Welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes, there was a lot to review, and you especially were skeptical about some of the adjustment or lack of adjustment, as one would put it, that the CBN decided to embark upon today, seeing that this is their last meeting for the year in the middle of a recession. What's your take on some of the decisions made by CBN regarding the future of the country, especially at these economic times?
Well, as a matter of fact, I think my observation was that they didn't have much choices available to them. In monetary policy, sometimes you run out of options. And I also did express the fact that, at the stage where we are right now, the instrument of interest rate, which is the only instrument available to them, or rather the main instrument available to the central bank or the monetary policy committee, is not going to be able to help that much. That's my observation. Because to a very large extent, people are expecting that by now the central bank will probably cut interest rates. If they cut interest rates, inflation will go up. Right? If they cut the other monetary indices like the monetary policy rate, or the cash reserve ratio, liquidity ratio, of course, it's going to fuel inflation. And if they increase interest rates, their own MPR, monetary policy rate, if they increase that one, all right, the manufacturers of Nigeria, they don't want to hear that at all, because that means increased costs to manufacturers and borrowers in general. And that, again, we also have to note that what we have is a supply side or cost push inflation, meaning that the stagflation, all right, not even the inflation that we're in, is as a result of increased costs to producers and sellers of goods. So you don't want to touch it. You can't actually touch interest rates up or down for now. The best they can do is observe what happens for the rest of the year.
Okay, so it brings me to the part of the conversation. I know you were on channels earlier on today, and you talked about the fact that even the lack of decision, lack of movement of any other factors, because it appears of all the indicators that they moved, this one stayed on. They didn't move this one of good interest. But here's another part to observe and raise the fundamental question on. They've often campaigned, the present government often campaigns about the fact that they want investors to come in. Are these conditions good enough right now to say investors may possibly come in to invest in a country in a recession?
I think the first thing to do is to kind of disabuse our mind from this view of the investors coming in. I think that the mentality that I see expressed in Africa, among African countries, especially Nigeria, of always looking for investors, and it kind of speaks to a certain helplessness. That we believe we can't help ourselves. We need to go and drag people from abroad to come and help us, whether to invest in our economy. And many times, as we're looking for those ones, people are also moving money out of the country. As a matter of fact, this year, the Minister of Trade did say yesterday or 2 days ago that about $20 billion in investment have come in this year.
Inflow,
people
yes.
Are asking, they can't see the money. Where did it go? Which sector? And of course, it did list a few big deals that some people have done. Now, exactly what we're saying, that is where it is shown that finance is not economic. All right? So because if you say, money has come in, but many times those money don't even trickle down, people don't know where the money went into, it has no impact on the people, then you have a problem. So this view of the investors, we need to actually disabuse our minds from it, because there are two types of investors. There are talking about the foreign portfolio investors, those guys are going to invest in the stock market, and of late they've been investing in the bond market to the detriment of the stock market, because there's an assured 16-17% for them in the bond market. All right, so and then you now talk about what is called the foreign direct investors, which are those who invest in tangible real sector things.
Yes.
Those are the ones that are very difficult to find. Now, you don't even actually get a lot of those by going ball in hand begging them to please come. No, they don't take it serious, because these are very serious people. They do their own analysis, they do their own due diligence, they know a lot more about your country than you know yourself. You don't beg them. It's obvious to them that there's a good investment, they come in, they take the position, they're gone. All right, and the more you beg them, the less the price you. If you want to get a good premium on your assets and on whatever business you're giving them, you have to play hard to get in a way, and that also means that you have to tidy up your home. So if they come in here and what they see on ground is what determines how much they're going to price us. But if we don't tidy ourselves up, if we don't show that we're ready for business, if we don't show that with what we have we can do a lot, if we don't show that we value what we have. If we don't show that we understand the value of things itself, if we don't show that we actually value our human resources, then these guys are going to take off for a joke and won't get much business.
Okay,
so as things stand right now, with Nigeria selling bonds at 16-17% for the coupon, I think it's good enough for any foreign investor. They expect us to take it up to 20%, like some other developing countries have done.
But of good interest as well. I mean, at the time the CBN is saying, let's keep things on hold, and the government as well is saying we need $30 billion as part of the loan to move the economy forward. We also would find the Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Udo Udoma, saying the Nigerian budget for the year 2016, 79% performance is the record he puts it for the first 3 quarters of this year. 79%. In fact, much of his attribution is that 3.577 trillion has been spent out of the 6.06 trillion naira. Now, is that something to relate to?
Well, okay, 2 things. Number one, 3.5 out of 6 billion is not 79%.
That's his claim.
He was comparing 3.5 billion with the recurrent budget. Perhaps that's what he was comparing. So, of course, we know that it's been spending recurrent. However, the inefficiencies of recurrent expenditure is still there. They've been catching a lot of people who ghost workers and so on, even though they have never stated who are these 30,000 ghost workers or 40,000, I don't know what number they got.
Yes.
So that's that. So, but however, if you say you're spending on the recurrent and you have done 79%, and people, the purchasing power is still low, people don't have money to even buy goods and so on, and poverty has increased so much, and the economy is even looking at near depression, then that means we haven't been spending rightly. That's the truth, So to that extent, but in terms of borrowing 30 billion, I am totally against this. I think it is a rather wayward move, if you ask me. I don't think we could manage that. We've never borrowed such an amount before. That kind of magnitude, perhaps we've only borrowed about a tenth of that at any single time in the past. And I think 2 things you need to look at. Number one, the moral hazard. Moral hazard of when you have this much money, you're likely going to misspend. By every means, we will misspend if you get that money.
We will misspend. We will spend.
Exchange the exchange risk. The fact that, even though officially Naira is about 320 or thereabouts right now for the bank, but nobody knows what will happen in the future. And when it comes to time to pay, and if Naira is doing $1,000 then I mean, of course, if that's something that's mine, we'll be looking for so much more money to pay. And of course, history does not support it, because in the past, we never borrowed that much to run into trouble. And when we were going to repay majority of the loans in 2006, we were looking for money at 120, money that we borrowed at 1 naira for $1. We ended up paying 120 times over, apart from the fact that we established those loans of 12 billion. We had spent 38 billion servicing the loan. We were still owing 35 billion. We have spent 30 billion out of it, which is 18 billion was given to us for free, quote and unquote. But we had to pay 120 naira for $12 billion, which was 1.44 trillion. So money that we borrowed at 12 billion naira, we paid at 1.44 trillion naira. That's in the past. I think the guys have to be careful.
So
be careful not to put our children unborn in bondage.
So it's almost possible to say maybe we're not very good with financial lessons as regards paying and saying what would happen next. But it brings me to the next part of the conversation, because much of the claim by the federal government now is that they provided $30 billion as the request, but then they had to go back and as well provide the reason for borrowing. And if there was no reason to, if there was no paperwork to provide to say, this is why we want to borrow $30 billion, I wonder, is there a reason to think there's a payment plan in order? Is there any payment plan discussed?
Well, I think we have to see the finance in government and the way they are things to those who are in government for now. Lest it sounds as if one is merely just criticizing. It's not enough that they haven't prepared. I mean, it's not enough that we're going to borrow that much money. We're trying to borrow that much money. If you have never borrowed before, I don't know who gave them that idea that we should launch headlong into such huge facility. And of course, in the morning shows the day. If they couldn't put the papers together, say this is what we want to spend on, this is how we're going to repay the money, this is where the money is going to come from in minute detail, then that raises a red flag.
Okay, so let me take you up a little bit on the GDP as we would have it. I looked at the 41 pages of documents released by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. Essentially, one would say, in the minus range is what we will find our GDP performing, minus 2.24% or thereabouts. Can't pick up the figure from my head right now. But one would say the GDP indicates that we're not doing fine. Then when we go down to the sectors, the oil sector not doing fine. The non-oil sector, agriculture, appears to be picking up a little bit. And then the mining as well is being talked about. Do you sincerely think, I would ask you this plainly as an economist, we've done enough planning to depend on agriculture as an escape plan financially for the country? Well,
in my view, number one, agriculture cannot be an escape plan for us financially. Be one of the strategic avenues that we have to use. Agriculture, we can only focus on agriculture to the extent that we need to feed ourselves. No matter how much we sell in agriculture, we will never be able to buy the things we need. How many tons of yam do you need to buy one? So to buy one iPhone, for example, or to buy one Samsung phone, you need thousands of dollars in order to buy one iPhone. All right, So agriculture, we can only focus on feeding ourselves. Of course, it was revealed last week by no less than the presidential spokesman that Nigeria was going to probably face a famine if we're not
in January. Yes,
in January. And what was the reason? He said, well, 500 crops of grains are leaving Nigeria on a daily basis for border countries, and therefore, I mean, there's a need for us to think about what happens to the people locally. If I just think, because people are starving in Nigeria, and yet people are exporting abroad. Now, you can't stop a businessman from exporting, all right? But that's where governance jams with the economy, right? What do you do as a government? Do you open your eyes and say, because many of these guys who are exporting, the money is not even coming back to Nigeria, right? Many of the exporters are not even documented properly, so you can't even get tax, you can't get anything on those, right? But that's because our economy actually has become stillborn. And we're still talking about neoclassical economics when the world has moved on.
Yeah.
Our economics, when we practically does not show that we're thinking people. So that's where the problem is, So we have a big problem. So agriculture cannot, we can only do agriculture and ensure that let me tell you another ridiculous thing.
Yes.
The Punch of Monday carried a report whereby in some states in the southwest of Nigeria, the entire forest reserve was government being used to grow Indian hemp, cannabis, rather than even to grow food. Of course, they used to grow cocoa in some of those states, but now they are growing cannabis. Nigeria has become, or perhaps used to be the fourth, or maybe we're still the fourth biggest producing cocoa producing, but we're producing a quarter of what they are producing in Côte d'Ivoire. Right? So imagine Côte d'Ivoire, imagine Nigeria. What happened to us? So on one hand, we stopped planting the cocoa because it takes 4 years or 5 years for cocoa to grow and bud and get the future. Now people are not even growing even cassava or yam or things you can eat. We're looking at the money and we're growing cannabis instead, and we're creating a growth problem both at home and abroad. Because a kilogram of cannabis is about 10,000. I forget how much they call it, already 10,000 naira, whereas a kilogram of cocoa that will take 4 years, gives you maybe 2,000 thereabouts, So they did the analysis there in the fund. So you can see, agri cannot take us forward. The issue about GDP itself is contentious. All right?
Yes.
I think the focus on GDP is wrong. I think the fact that we still have a huge problem with our data gathering, we need to cleanse our data properly. We have not got to that level where nobody, for example, today in some states in Georgia, where you're coming from, in the hinterland of Georgia, who knows how much business went on there today?
Yes,
right?
Yes, you're absolutely right.
In the United States and all these countries we are copying, they have their data treated already. In Nigeria, we're only trying. So there's a limit to what you can put the premium on this. However, when the people are starving, our politicians should open their eyes and what is on ground. So I'm talking of beyond the data. It is good to have data, but we have to also be thinking beyond data. We have to open our eyes and see what's going on in our country. And we have to be much more imaginative with this kind of care that we are offering towards daily around the country. Agri is only for you to feed yourself. Manufacturing has tanked. Manufacturing now, we're talking of the numbers you can employ in manufacturing is reducing day by day because of technology. The mining sector, fine, but you have to think about the environment. I've heard that there are places in Satoshi that have been devastated by miners in the past, where you can't even grow anything anymore. So it's not a thing that we want to rush into. Even all over the world, in South Africa right now, mining is on the decline. Technology is taking out miners from work. So we are faced finally with a very comprehensive problem that no one can help us solve for ourselves.
Well, there's a lot to say, but I guess you can't say it all in one day. Thank you, Tokwe. Just before you go, Mr. Fashu, let me quickly ask you this. Do you still believe the middle class is an illusion?
It is. Well, in Nigeria, it is an illusion.
Okay.
It is an illusion. In Nigeria, we have a huge inequality problem. Other countries, especially even in Europe and America, they have addressed their minds to the issue of inequality. The Brexit that you saw was a reaction towards inequality. Donald Trump is a reaction towards inequality. The guys in New York, in the banking sector in New York and co, they don't want Trump there. Yeah, but the people in Wyoming, in the hills and all that of Montana, they have been left out of the mad rush for money, and those people get the feedback.
Yeah.
In Nigeria, we haven't even started at all. So that's the situation we find ourselves.
Well, I've been speaking with the CEO of Global Analytics Consulting. Is Mr. Tokwe Fashu. He's an economist, accountant, columnist, author, and a consultant. He used to be the regional director of one of the past banks as well. And I can tell you would love to read one of his books. Things to Do Before Your Career Disappears is one amazing book. I do hope to bring him down to just one of these days. Of course, he's also well schooled from London Metropolitan University as well, and of course with executive education from the likes of London Business School and Harvard University. Thank you, Mr. Tokwe Fashu, for joining in this meeting.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right there. Thank you. All right. Well, we've been having a conversation with Mr. Tokwe Fashu regarding much of the development and, of course, the announcement that was made earlier on today by the CBN governor that nothing would possibly change. Wait, I have an announcement of my own to tell you today. This one is really interesting. It's very simple. And this may even form the basis of the discussion. If only you would believe me, because I'm trying to believe what I'm about to say myself. If you believe me that I believe this, then we have a believing problem. Trust me. If you believe that I believe this, then we have a believing problem. Quote, relationship between President Buhari and Nigerians is as solid as the proverbial rock. Find out who said that. All coming up next after this break. Stay with me right here this very day. I'll be back after now. There's always room for debate.